My name is Benjamin, and I am an astrophysicist. I may have just made a profound discovery, though I doubt I am the only one. Surely, right now, hundreds of scientists are coming to the same conclusions. You can check for yourself if you don't believe me. Just wait until it gets dark, then head outside. Of course, unless you're a trained astronomer with your star charts handy. The odds are you might not notice anything strange at all. My role in all of this started only a few hours ago, although it feels like far longer. I was taking readings of the cosmic background radiation in my university's observatory when I noticed something odd on one of the monitors. A patch of sky was being analyzed by some software, likely initiated by one of my colleagues. I noticed a sudden drop in the signal. If I hadn't let my eyes wander over to the screen at the exact right moment, I might not have seen anything at all. The signal didn't drop out entirely. It just decreased sharply and suddenly in magnitude. Where before, the digital telescope's pixels were reading ones, they were now reading zeros. To put this in layman's terms, as best as I can, the stars had gone dark, but only a few of them. I looked around the building and the break room, trying to find the person who belonged to the data, but I was completely alone. At this point, it was no more than a curiosity to me. Since my own data was still compiling, and since my favorite online card game was blocked by the university's firewall, I decided to head up to the roof and do some basic observations. I'm an astrophysicist, not an astronomer, so I spend far more of my time gazing at computer screens than at the stars themselves. But I remembered a bit of my undergrad credits and dusted off a rooftop optical telescope. I did my best to find the patch of sky that had experienced a sudden signal loss. I believed that I had found it, but it was unremarkable, and I couldn't tell if anything was amiss at all. I hate to say it, but I gave up then and there. Since I still had some time while my data compiled, I decided to be nostalgic and give the heavens a quick scan. I peered at my favorite constellations, or at least the ones I remembered. First, I located Polaris, the star which through an accident of axial precision was in near-perfect position to guide mankind north for hundreds of years. Checked out the Gemini twins, Castor and Pollux, brother to Helen of Troy and inspiration to the two-man space flights of the early 1960s. Then, I looked to Orion, one of the first constellations that a freshman astronomer will pick out. I traced out the form of the hunter the way I had learned long ago. Orion's left shoulder was Betelgeuse, a strangely reddish star. His other shoulder was Bellatrix. Orion's foot was... it was missing. I remember this was supposed to be Rigel, a distant high-energy supergiant. I couldn't find it anywhere. Stranger still, Orion's belt, that famous straight line of stars, didn't look quite right either. Confused, I kept looking at the stars, wishing that I had retained more of my undergrad astronomy. I looked for the brightest stars visible from my position on the globe. Everything seemed fine. Capella was there, Sirius, the dog star, was shining brightly. But then I noticed Canis Major, the constellation containing Sirius, was incomplete. The dog had no tail. I couldn't for the life of me remember that star. So I ran downstairs, past the laboratory where my data was probably ready, to an unlocked classroom. I grabbed a textbook from the shelf and started skimming. After a few minutes I found it. The missing star was Eudora, a distant star remarkable for its stability and use as a standard candle. My triumph was short-lived, however, because I had no idea what it all meant. No Rigel, no Eudora, and a general sense of wrongness in the sky. I need more data. I grabbed some more materials from the classroom. I intended to return them, but I'm just now remembering that I forgot. Oh well. I ran back to the roof and started going over my observations with the proper reference materials. The two stars that I had noticed missing were Rigel and Eudora. However, other stars such as Betelgeuse, Capella, and Polaris were all present and accounted for. I looked in an index of stars and finally saw a pattern. The missing stars were further away than the others. Even though they both make up parts of Orion's body, Betelgeuse and Rigel are hundreds of light years distant. I spent the rest of the evening doing a systematic survey of the night sky. Unfortunately, there was an entire hemisphere between me and half of the visible stars, but I gave it my best shot. My initial theory was confirmed. The stars that were furthest away from Earth were missing, but I refined my observations. Using the optical telescope and my basic star charts, I came up with a long list of missing stars. I took these data points down to the lab and started building a computer model. I used a 3D map of the galaxy and plotted out the missing stars. That's when I noticed it. The data points all fell outside a certain radius. There was a nearly perfect sphere of stars, with everything outside having simply vanished. An interstellar radius, hundreds of light years wide, was trapping all visible stars and shutting out all others. Since that discovery, I haven't been able to stop myself from coming up with crazy explanatory theories. Were all the stars destroyed? No, they couldn't have gone nova. We would have seen it. The colossal release of energy probably would have destroyed the Earth. Had a chunk of the galaxy simply been trapped in a giant sphere? It fit the data, but it was crazy. What could do that? Who could do that? And why? Does the sphere imply intelligence? Or is it a natural form? Maybe we weren't in the Milky Way at all anymore. Perhaps our little sphere of stars was removed, teleported out of the galaxy. But that was just as impossible as anything else. I've taken some sleeping pills to quiet my mind, if nothing else. I'm sure by the time I wake up, the entire scientific community will be abuzz with this information. But I'll leave you with a few things before I crash. This sphere, or whatever it is, outside of which all stars have gone out, don't be narcissistic and think it's centered on Earth. I plotted the sphere, and while Earth is in it, we're not the center. The perfect center, as best as I can tell from my data, is an unremarkable G-class star located several hundred light years away from Earth, known only to me through a search of the stellar catalogs. I have no idea what this means. Finally, and possibly the most disturbing thought I've had all night is this. Because of the speed at which light travels, and because of the radius of the sphere, whatever happened to make the stars go dark happened over 700 years ago.